That's the sound of the baby grand piano in the lobby of the Grand Union Hotel in Fort Benton, Montana. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Hurlock, and this week I'm reporting from Montana, from the hometown of IND Hemp in Fort Benton, where for the past few days I've been attending the Montana Summer Summit of 2022, hosted by IND Hemp. This week's show is going to be a little different from my usual shows in a couple of different ways. So the first thing is the audio quality is going to be a little wacky. I'm sort of running a makeshift studio here in my hotel room, so things will sound a little different. So bear with me and thank you for your patience. Second, I'm just going to tell the story of my trip to Montana, how I got here, who I met along the way, and what I witnessed at the summit. Thirdly, I usually take more time to put these episodes together, but I'm traveling all day tomorrow, and so today is production day, and so today I'm putting this show together as quickly as I can. And maybe another difference is how I'll do the sponsor messages. So today's show is sponsored by IND Hemp, and I am grateful for their continued support of our podcast. But more importantly, I'm grateful for what they are doing to further the fiber and grain side of the hemp industry. Doing things like hosting this summit. They've invited people here from all over the country and the globe here to Fort Benton to talk about the industry, share ideas, talk about the challenges that the industry faces and all of the opportunities, and how, together, by working together, by cooperating, they can achieve more. It's a chance for people to get together to learn. It's a chance for people to come out to the field and actually see the fiber and the grain in the field growing, talk to the farmers, talk to the agronomists. This week's show is also brought to you in part by Impactful Ventures, who encourage you to check out and support Sunflower Films. Do you remember the filmmaker that I interviewed a couple of months ago? Jordan Berger from Sunflower Films. But I will tell you more about that later in this show, because the guys from Sunflower are also here in Montana for the summit. Okay, so that's my intro. Let's back up a little bit. So I left my house in Pennsylvania at 6 a.m. Monday morning for a 10 a.m. flight to Philadelphia to Detroit. Once in Detroit, I had about 10 minutes to get from one side of the airport to the other to catch my next flight to Salt Lake City, and then on to Great Falls, Montana. The flights were rather uneventful. I listened to a history podcast about Lewis and Clark. I watched North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock. And I listened to the T-Rex album Electric Warrior. But on the flight to Montana, I had a great conversation with this old-timer sitting next to me in the plane. His name was Don Cody, 92 years old, and he was traveling by himself back to Montana to see his family. This is where he grew up and raised his family, but he and his wife retired to Arizona many, many years ago. And he told me all kinds of stories about joining the service, about his first car, about some of the RV trips that he took with his wife. At one point, they put their RV up on some kind of flatbed train truck and took a train RV trip to Mexico. So it was pretty amazing. He lived a fascinating life, and you could tell that he was grateful for it, and he knew he was lucky. And I asked him what the secret was for such a long and happy life. And he said, "Oh, I don't know. I suppose good parents and the grace of God." He was very inspiring to me, and was a great reminder to me about how lucky I am to be doing what I'm doing. I can't believe I get to do this work. It's humbling and fulfilling and very meaningful to me. I get to spend a few days with the smartest, most hardworking, most dedicated and passionate people in the hemp industry. They're committed to standing up this industry and to change the world. This is inspiring stuff, and I am just absolutely thrilled and humbled, and just to be a part of it. I am sort of speechless when I come to think about the work I'm doing, and it's crazy. Just to be a witness to all of this is mind-blowing. Why am I here? How did I get so lucky? I don't know how. I just know that I am, and I don't take that for granted. Anyway, when I landed in Great Falls, Greg Necco from IND Hemp picked me up and drove me back to Fort Benton. I had spent a few days here last summer with my family as we traveled across the country visiting hemp farmers and processors. We were driving that great big RV that my wife named Dolly. And I was looking forward to getting back to this amazing little town. We stayed at the Grand Union Hotel last year for a few days, and we parked the RV out front on the street, right along the Missouri River. The river is so wide and swift, and it's just surprising to me how fast it's moving. And it's full of history. You know, here in Montana, this is where Lewis and Clark got out of the boat. This was the gateway to the West. So when we got close to town and I could see the curve of the river, my heart leapt with joy to be back here again. It felt surreal to me. You know, it was like no time had passed since I was here last summer, and I would not have been surprised to see old Dolly the RV parked on the street. But luckily, I was traveling a little lighter this time. So once we got into town, we went directly to a place called the Wake Up. It's a restaurant, and that's where we found Ken Elliott and his wife Julie. It was great to see them again and to be back in town. Greg had very kindly brought me an e-bike so I could cruise around the town a little more easily than having to walk everywhere. So after we checked into the hotel, we went out to check out the bike at his place in town. Then we had dinner at the hotel with a few IND Hemp folks and some industry people. After dinner, I went back to the Wake Up and caught up with Ken and Julie and the Sunflower film crew, Jordan, Maxwell, and Garrett. I have been helping Jordan make connections with people in the industry so he could interview them and help tell the story, but also to help him find funding for the project. So we've had lots of phone calls over the past few months, but we had never actually met in person until this past Monday night. And you know when you meet people and you feel like you've already known them for years? That's what it was like meeting Jordan, Maxwell, and Garrett. A lot of what I do here with the podcast is based solely on instinct and connection and trusting and following your heart. That's what I do. Most of the time I feel like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just winging it. But then I take stock of the situation and I think, yes, this all feels right somehow. Like I'm supposed to be here now in Montana with all these people so I can be a witness to the birth of an industry that is so much more than an industry, even though this thing is new and barely an industry at all. And I get to tell the story of the people that are making it happen. I went back to the hotel and I went to bed. I woke up super early because my body is still on Eastern time, but I managed to fall back asleep. But I was downstairs looking for coffee by 6:30. The folks at IND Hemp had a very big day planned for us on Tuesday. But let's back up a little bit. So last year, they held the inaugural Summer Summit, and it coincided with the hemp tour that I was on. And so last year, there were about 50 people that they brought out for the summit last year. And this year, it's slightly bigger. Maybe about 150 people were in town for it this year, representing a wide range of businesses, associations, and policymakers. Heck, the head of the USDA hemp program, Bill Richmond, was here. The National Hemp Association, the Global Hemp Association, Global Fiber Processing, Bear Fiber, Tiger Fiber, Victory Hemp Foods, Hemp Wood, Hempitexture, International Hemp, the Montana Department of Agriculture, Queen of Hearts, Planet-Based Foods, Pan Exchange, New West Genetics, the list goes on and on. People and companies from all over the different parts of the supply chain. A super impressive list of attendees. And there's no way I can do them all justice here. But I made a ton of great connections and will be bringing you some very interesting interviews over the next few months based on who I met here this week in Montana. So I'm just going to give you a recap of the day. So Tuesday started at the Montana Agriculture Museum at 8 o'clock. First, Ken Elliott welcomed everybody, and he got the day started.
We're going to speak to how hemp is food. I think with geopolitics being what it is today, food is going to be a real issue. I think if you're paying attention to the weather and have concerns about climate issues, I think climate issues are a real thing. And so from our standpoint, from our company's standpoint, I like to tell people that IND Hemp is an environmental company, and we just do hemp very well. We care about our soil, we care about our environment, we care about our farmers and our communities. We got kids, we got grandkids. You know, our hope is to leave this world a little bit better than what we found it. We want you guys to meet and greet with each other. The answer to the hemp industry is sitting right here in this room somewhere. And so collaborate, come see what we do. We're pretty much an open file on what we do. We try to share with you what we've done. We've done a lot wrong, and I'd recommend don't do what we did wrong. Right? We have some investor types here today. Our job is to de-risk this industry so that he'll invest in others, right? And if we can do that, if you guys can take away something that you saw here, if you have questions when you go back home, feel free to call us. We got a lot of smart people here that work for IND Hemp. We got a lot of people sitting here in the crowd. So.
Then his daughter Morgan Tweet gave a recap of last year's summit.
You guys have come a long ways. I know it's expensive to travel. I know a lot of people that are here on really tight budgets, and you know, I just applaud all of you because we're not all entrepreneurs just trying to build a business. We're all entrepreneurs trying to build an industry. And there's a difference, and it's hard. And so, you know, if you're here again for the second summer summit, I really appreciate you coming out. You guys are the OGs, right? Like Dad said, we had about 40 to 50 people here last year, and last time we checked, we're about 120, 130. So that's a huge indication of just the growth of the industry in the last 12 months. And we feel really blessed to be here and lead you through this next summit.
And introduced the first panel. This was a state of the industry conversation. We heard from Jacob Waddell from the U.S. Hemp Building Association.
We do believe cooperation is the way to move forward. I think Ken said something really important here, that de-risking the industry is critical right now, so that we can welcome in these major players that are just standing on the outside looking in right now. So here at the USHBA and USHBF, we have a multi-pronged strategy right now that we're trying to go through. The first thing is establishing codes for the hemp building industry. We're trying to work in the ICC in order to get these codes put into place to kind of make this industry more viable and make building a more realistic thing. We are trying to create testing standard procedures to assess the quality of material so that we can all agree these tests equal these results and can compare apples to apples and make that very clear. We're trying to make the competitive argument by establishing defendable calculations for thermal calculations, performance data, and carbon calculations. Because again, we need to compete, and in order to show that we are legitimate players, we need real data to back all that up.
Then Erica Stark from the National Hemp Association.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. It is a great honor to be here. I was just saying, like several years ago, we went to Europe to visit one of the major hemp processing facilities over there. And I said that I felt like a little kid at Santa's workshop, like realizing that, hey, this is actually real. But being here today and having the ability to see this happening here in the United States really takes it to a whole new level. And everything that we've all worked for years and years and years is finally starting to happen. I think we kind of naively believed that once we got the passage of the 2018 Farm Bill and hemp was legalized, that like our job would suddenly become easier and it was just going to be smooth sailing all the way out. And that was definitely naive, because this is the real work. And seeing such a fine group of people here working together to do that work is very, very rewarding so thank you again for having me, and thank you all for being here. Again, I'm Erica Stark, the Executive Director of the National Hemp Association, and we are an association rooted in the knowledge that hemp can provide a wide range of opportunities from the field to the factory, and that through a recent economic impact report that we developed for the White House, we determined that there is a total addressable market of $15 trillion. Now, it's not going to be easy to get there, but that is the pie that Morgan was talking about, that if we all work together, we can certainly make that a reality. We don't advocate that hemp is like some miracle plant that's going to save the planet all on its own. Like we definitely believe in practical reality, but hemp has an important piece to play in many, many aspects of what we want to see moving forward. In order to get there, we have to advocate for sensible policy and regulation. And we also are facilitators in building reliable supply chains, and we believe in the spirit of collaboration. And working together, we can achieve a whole lot more than any of us can achieve working individually.
Andrew Bish talked about the Hemp Feed Coalition.
Our mission is to gain federal approval for hemp and its byproducts as animal feed to create new markets. We got a lot of work ahead of us. I've never worked so hard and achieved so very little in my life, but it's rewarding work. And part of the reason that I do what I do is because I believe that what we do at the Hemp Feed Coalition is really the key to the economics of this industry.
Courtney Moran from Agricultural Hemp Solutions talked about the Exemption Bill.
So what will this industrial hemp exemption framework do? Break through the barriers for grain and fiber and reestablish industrial hemp as an agricultural commodity as close as we can to other agricultural commodities, given the concerns that are still out there with marijuana prohibition. So what the bill does is it establishes a sub-definition for industrial hemp under the broader hemp definition. It will create a designation on the grower application that if a grower is solely growing for grain and fiber, they will have nothing to do with cannabinoids, not dual or tri-purpose crops that have anything to do with cannabinoids. They will solely grow for grain and fiber and only harvest grain and fiber, not take any of the resins or anything like that, that they will elect to be part of this special program, this grain and fiber exemption program. If you are part of this program, you will no longer have to undergo background checks, and rather than going through traditional sampling and testing, you will only have to go through a visual inspection.
Mandy Kerr talked about the Global Hemp Association.
I want to say thank you to our sponsors, our members, other associations that are up here, because I'll pretty much say what they've all said. We can't do it without collaboration, without all of your support. So again, moving hemp forward together is really our goal.
And finally, Aaron Barr from the Canadian Hemp Trade Alliance talked about the Canadian hemp industry. You know, what the situation is up there with processing and fiber and regulations. Very interesting stuff.
For those that don't know, we're the partners in the Great White North. We've had hemp federally legalized since 1998 in Canada. We have a lot of experience growing hemp for food.
Then there was a discussion about carbon markets with Jay McIntyre from Arva Intelligence and Seth Boone from Pan Exchange. After that, Trey Riddle from IND Hemp introduced the idea of a grain and fiber trade alliance.
We're ready to support this and be founding members, and we don't know what that commitment is today, but we're willing to make a commitment. We're willing to provide resources, be that time, people, money. I think we feel this is really important for the industry. We hope others of you will see it as well. And because individually we can succeed, but together we can make a difference.
And then we broke for lunch. After lunch, there was a panel discussion about agronomics and research.
Our objective in crops is to really look for ways to increase diversity and on-farm profitability for producers. And that's also what ties into hemp. We see hemp as a great potential to be a broad acre alternate crop for growers to increase their on-farm profitability.
But I didn't stick around for this panel. I set up my recorder so I could listen to it later, but the Sunflower film crew, they wanted to interview me for the documentary. They were all set up in the museum, this agricultural museum, which is filled with all sorts of amazing, old tractors and, fascinating things from the history of agriculture here in Montana. So when you see this documentary at some point, you might just see me there in the museum with some kind of awesome antique tractor behind me. After they interviewed me, I went back in and got my tape recorder, and then they took us out for tours of the processing plants. They opened up the doors to the seed processing plant and the fiber plant. So I rode my bike over there. It's a very impressive operation, and it was awesome to hear all that happens here at these facilities. Last time I was in the fiber plant was last summer, and this year the place looked very different. The decortication system was operational now. It had all of the pneumatic tubing in place. None of that was there last year, but this year you could tell it was up and running. And where last year there had been a great big empty space where I actually parked the RV for a while, indoors in the plant, it's that big. Now it's all filled with pallets, lots of pallets of processed hemp fiber. And then after that, there was this little happy hour there at the fiber plant. We drank hemp beer and people mingled. I talked to Jeff Whaling for a while and heard about his amazing life growing up in Canada, working with the Canadian government to legalize hemp in the 90s, and how he happens to know Paul McCartney. I've asked him to put me in touch with Paul so I can, interview him on this show. I think an interview with one of the world's most famous people would do wonders in elevating the profile of hemp and the industry and everything that's happening here. Like, does Paul know that industrial hemp grown on a massive scale could move the needle on climate mitigation? I don't know. I would like to have a conversation with him. Apparently he grows hemp on his farm in England, but I would guess he's growing CBD. But then again, I don't know. I would love to talk to him. So I feel like we need to elevate this conversation and reach people outside of the hemp bubble. And if I could talk to Paul about it, maybe the general public would be interested in listening to it, and then we would further the message. So anyway, back to our story. After the happy hour, there was a dinner back at the Ag Museum. It was a fun night. The food was good. I met a ton of interesting people. There was a duo playing music on the side. They were called the Lucky Valentines, and they sounded great if you stood close enough and listened. But the room was big and bouncy, and the conversations of 150 people were cacophonous, and it sort of drowned out the Lucky Valentines. As the party started to thin out, I made my way back to the hotel. I brought a straw hat with me. Just like a straw hat. I bought it at the Goods near Shady Maple in Lancaster County a couple of months ago. It's what I wear when I cut the grass and work out in the garden. I figured I was going to need a good hat here in Montana, especially out visiting the hemp fields in the cooking sun. So anyway, I had my hat on while I was cruising back to the hotel on the e-bike, probably going about 15 miles an hour, when a gust of wind picked up my hat right off my head, and I guess I tried to grab it as it flew, but instead I lost control of the bike and hit the pavement. It could have been much, much worse. But I only scraped my hand, my right hand, pretty good. My fingertip has a little bit on it, my knee, and the big toe on my right foot. But like I said, I was very lucky. It could have been a whole lot worse, and I learned a valuable lesson about straw hats and e-bikes. The hotel staff provided some first aid, and I got myself all cleaned up, and then I went to bed. The next day, Wednesday, was another big day. This time we met at the Community Bible Center in town, where they had some breakfast for us, and then we all loaded onto buses and drove out to see some hemp in the field. We drove about an hour out towards Great Falls. We went to a field of fiber hemp that was being harvested then and there that day with a sickle bar mower. IND Hemp set up a PA system in the hemp field and had a Q&A with the farmer and the agronomist. The farmer's name was Chuck Merger, and he told us all about, planting the hemp and what he thought about the crop and how he got into it. And Ben Brimlow, IND Hemp's agronomist, he talked about all sorts of things, and people asked questions, and it was great. The hemp itself looked great. It was an irrigated field. It stood about 5 or 6 feet high and was being cut that day before it went to flower. And many people in this group had never seen hemp in the wild before, so it's always great to see people witnessing a field of hemp for the first time. This is definitely not my first hemp field, but it never gets old to me. It's just so thrilling, especially here in north central Montana, where the predominant color is this washed out tan of wheat fields. And then when you see the bright green of hemp, it's just striking to the eyes. From the fiber field, we loaded back onto the buses and went to a grain field. The difference between these two crops is striking. Where the fiber was tall and bright green, the grain hemp was already in flower mode, and the plants were mostly stalks and buds, not really a lot of leaves. Apparently the canopy dies back as the seeds develop in the flower. These plants were about 3 to 4 feet high, and they'll be harvested in about 3 weeks. By lunchtime, we were back in Fort Benton. They served hemp burgers provided by Planet-Based Foods. During lunch, there was a discussion about crop insurance, and after lunch, there was a panel discussion for investors. I skipped this investor panel. I needed to get back and clean up these wounds on my hand. I hadn't had a chance to clean them properly in the morning because none of the stores were open yet by the time I had to go get on the buses. So I rode down to the river market and I got some alcohol and gauze and bandages and I got myself all cleaned up. So I made it back to the summit in time for a discussion about hemp food with Chad Rosen from Victory Hemp, Tanya Farman from Queen of Hearts, and Braylon Davis from Planet Based Foods. They talked about the nutritional value of hemp foods, that the hemp seed is a superfood full of protein and amino acids. After food, there was a fiber discussion. Chad Olrin from North Dakota State University and C2 Renew.
So the current dilemma, I showed you all those different products, everything we can do with hemp, but really what it comes down to is what's sustainable, And for me, in seeing how the market is developing, where the supply chains are, everything we've seen over the past couple of days, to me, it seems like initially here, there should be more of a regional focus. What makes sense for a certain region where there's going to be some crop production, where there's going to be some decortication, where there's going to be some manufacturing that's local and meaningful and impactful to that region. The minute we start trying to shift this material across the country, across different countries, then we start to see some issues with sustainability, right, from a transportation standpoint.
Maddie Mead from Hempatexture.
So one of the characteristics that our product is already certified for is we have a USDA bio-based product certification. 89% of our product is bio-based. And what that does is it allows our products to qualify for LEED accreditation points, which is a big incentive for architects and designers and developers to begin specifying hemp insulation into their projects.
Jim Preston from Raytech.
We're definitely going to be growing in this natural fiber sector. There is a lot of interest at Ford, a lot of interest at Hyundai, and a lot of interest at Toyota regarding natural fibers. The rest of them will all come because the automotive business is a real Me Too business. Once somebody has success, somebody else will jump on it.
And Guy Carpenter from Bear Fiber.
Let's see, comparison of cottonized hemp and cotton. You guys don't really care. Fact of the matter is that the hemp is better, it's stronger. It's about 3.5 times stronger than the cotton fiber of an equal length, and it's about 4.5 times more abrasion resistant. And the base of the matter is it's going to last longer and it's going to protect you more. There's all kinds of other stuff, but that I have scientific testing on from more than 3 different sources.
The grain and fiber discussions were great for the producers of hemp to hear about the end uses and products and get a sense of the potential of the market. Somehow during these sessions, I was able to go do a couple of interviews, which we're going to hear now. First up is Julie Lerner from Pan Exchange. Julie Lerner, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, Eric.
Yeah, so here we are out in Fort Benton, Montana, at the, I guess they're calling it the Montana Hemp Summit 2022.
I don't know what the IND meeting of the minds, maybe
something
like that. Yeah.
So I wonder first, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. So again, Julie Lerner, and I'm the CEO of Pan Exchange. So we do a couple of different things. We're a market structure solution overall. So with regard to hemp, we are the leading benchmark price provider and fundamental analyst. We have monthly reports where we get into supply and demand. We predict our own supply and do pretty good at it. Monthly benchmark prices, everything from cannabinoids to hurd and fiber and grain. And we have an online trading platform. In carbon, we just launched our carbon program. We found that the average independent farmer was getting squeezed out of opportunities in carbon. It's going big and going Wall Street and going commercial way too fast. And that is a massive opportunity cost for the farmer, for those seeking to offset, and of course for the climate. So we are leveraging our network and relationships in the hemp industry to get into carbon in a way that is not only affordable time and cost to the average farmer, but also gives them ownership and agency. I believe we're the only entity that will be allowing the farmer to go to the market directly with their own credits to sell them to whomever they choose at whatever price they can get and receive 100% of the value of that credit. As far as Pan Exchange goes, we will get the commission from the buy side.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds really empowering for the farmer, and that could be huge. Yeah. Cool. So I don't know. The hemp industry seems a little wacky these days.
Yes.
What are you getting out of this summit? Did this change your mind about anything, or give you a new perspective, or what do you think?
I am so grateful to the folks at IND Hemp. I needed this. I needed the FaceTime with everyone. The pandemic, I think, slowed our progress even more on the industrial side. I mean, that's the future of this grain and fibers, the future of this crop. CBD is great, wonderful product, but it's an ingredient market. It's tiny. It's a specialty market. We're into commodities at Pan Exchange. You know, we want to talk row crops.
Right.
And I think the pandemic slowed down the maturity of the market. So, you know, we're in this chasm on both grain and fiber with regard to the buy side, whether it's paper and pulp and building materials. You know, they're saying, don't talk to me about hemp, there's no supply. And then you've got the farmers who quite logically says, I'm not growing more until you show me the buyers. And it's crossing that chasm, and it takes a lot of long-term offtake agreements, which is not what we do at Pan Exchange, but something I'm advocating for. That's how important it is.
Yep.
And so I was getting very, very frustrated. So the FaceTime here in Montana with IND and everybody, I needed that boost, and I now have a renewed faith that we're going to pull through in hemp as an industry, and I think that carbon credits is going to make it more cost competitive with the incumbent materials, which is crucial.
Great. Can you talk about like something specific that you got out of the summit? Like either a panel discussion or a connection that you made? Like was there something specific you can point to?
Well, a lot of just great networking for expanding our carbon program has been wonderful. And then also I think we're making some headway navigating through the, how do we call it, the plethora of associations.
We need a unified voice.
It's hurting us.
The grain and fiber side needs a unified voice.
It is hurting us. We have got to get unified, get Washington educated, understand that outside of our world in hemp, the stigma is still very, very real. And that to me is the number one priority to get over.
Right. Well, there's the marijuana stigma, and now there's the CBD stigma too, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's interesting. I know this is controversial. I like what New York is doing.
Letting the hemp farmers get into the...
Let cannabinoid get regulated with the marijuana side.
Yeah, I think
and
that's
I know
that's
that,
wise.
you know, right now dual crop makes financial sense for people, but longer term, I think it needs to bifurcate.
Yeah, and especially if that exemption goes through, the hemp exemption, which I'm a supporter of.
Absolutely.
I think the industry needs that.
Makes sense.
So that'll make dual cropping a little tricky for the people, but it'll focus farmers on fiber and grain, because that's where the long-term potential is.
Right. I mean, we when I say the stigma is real, you know, as an example, we did a white paper. We're doing another series of white papers on hemp feed, updating all of that. And I spoke to my colleagues at the ABCDs and even the smaller trade houses, traditional grains. I said, hey guys, I think you'd be really interested. Hemp is competitive nutritionally and price-wise. You know, I know it's not quite legal, but you should be ready. And they're like, oh, don't talk to me about hemp. I mean, either they still didn't understand about marijuana, or, you know, they or their neighbor lost their shirt in CBD.
Right.
And it's really unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. So we'll get over it.
Yeah. So let's end on a positive note. What are you looking forward to from here?
Lots of interesting programs combining the benefits of hemp with how carbon friendly it is. I only wish that the carbon market started a little earlier to demonstrate to hemp farmers that it can work, and it's money in your pocket, and you should be rewarded for climate smart ag. And I'm very bullish on that part.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Julie Lerner, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Eric.
And then I wanted to talk to the representative from the Montana Department of Agriculture, Michaela Moore. Michaela Moore, welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. Could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Michaela Moore. I work for the Montana Department of Agriculture, and I am the State Hemp Program Officer, and I have been involved in this program for about 3 years now.
I know at one point Montana had a whole lot of hemp producers, and you've got fewer now, right?
Yeah, that was in 2019. I'm sure you heard them talk about it a lot today, kind of the evil of the CBD that came in.
The boom and the
in
bust.
some ways, yeah.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, that was that CBD gold rush, and people were just kind of blindly planting, hoping that it would save the farmer, the rancher, or just not knowing.
Right.
So we have a lot less growers now, but a lot of great farmers, and we're at a much more sustainable place.
Right. And a lot of your farmers now are grain growers, right?
Grain and fiber, is our primary.
Oh, I mean,
yeah.
just not even hemp. I mean, just in general. Like your farmers are grain sort of centric up here.
Yep.
So they know how to grow grain, so hemp seems like a great fit for these farmers.
Right, it does, yeah. With a little bit of, just help and knowledge. They have the great base knowledge. We have fantastic farmers in the state of Montana, but with a little bit of help on like some of the specifics of hemp, they usually do great. Granted, the drought's not terrible. All the natural factors that'll kill anything anyway. Yeah.
How is IND Hemp affecting things here in the state? Good for farmers?
Yeah, I think what IND Hemp has done is given our farmers an avenue for sure. An option. When farmers choose to contract with IND Hemp, they have agronomists on staff. They really help them get set up, and our farmers are great. I'm sure they could do it, do it anyway, but it's awesome to have, a business like IND Hemp in Montana that has kind of helped develop the grain and fiber industry in Montana.
Okay. And now we're here at this Montana Summer Hemp Summit. What have you learned from this summit? What have you taken away from it?
This whole experience has been great for me. Being on the regulation side, I feel like I miss out on a lot of things. And I'm not the first one people usually want to talk to, or if they do, it's usually a complaint. And I understand it. So I miss out on a lot of the cool things that go on in the industry. And when I come to these events, I get to talk to them, shake their hands, and collaborate with them, because regulation, supply chain, everything's connected in some ways that we don't even realize. And so it's great for me to be able to sit down with USDA and talk about what's going on in the industry in Montana and what we need and maybe how we can develop regulation or work on changing regulation, and it affects all the farmers and the growers. And then to just hear about what everybody else is doing is amazing and collaborate with them. I mean, these are the industry members and representatives that can actually make stuff happen. So it's pretty cool to see them come together.
Nice. How, from your perspective, what needs to be done to get more Montana farmers growing hemp, fiber and grain?
I don't know if it's from my perspective necessarily, but one thing I hear a lot from the farmers is that regulation makes it hard. There are some things, they have to jump through some hoops to grow hemp. And, I know IND Hemp is working on a grain and fiber exemption and that sort of thing. So maybe we'll see some movement on some of that. And the other thing is just miseducation, maybe, or misinformation or lack of information. And a lot of farmers are scared to maybe venture into a new crop. Yeah. Why fix it if it's broke or it's a risk, that sort of thing. So it's nice when we have events like this where they can come and learn more about it from people who are already growing it, have been growing it, who have grown it, made a product with it, sold the product. The full kind of circle is what they get to see if they come to events like this. So. Okay.
Final words, maybe what you would want people around the country to know about agriculture here in Montana.
Montana's wonderful. I think I would say we have some of the most incredible farmers, and I mean, we have 6th generation ranchers and farmers, and it's amazing, and it gives us kind of unique foothold there, where we have farmers that can grow such large amounts of hemp or other crops. I mean, it's nothing to see a 1,000-acre field of something or other, and that's pretty cool in Montana. We have great farmers, and I do appreciate getting to work for the Montana Department of Agriculture, and while it's hard to be a regulator at times, I appreciate the part of my job where I get to help the farmers and help them be in compliance and have a great crop. So.
Okay. In your job, do you have to go out and do the THC testing on the farms?
I do some, but I have inspectors around the state who are very experienced. They actually do samples for feed and for all of our other programs for the state, so they've got that really great regulatory background. And then we came in and trained them on hemp, and so they also do the hemp. I do some myself, and it's always interesting to see the different kinds of crops we test. From CBD to fiber to grain. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Michaela Moore, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. And then there was another discussion about the Trade Alliance, and IND Hemp asked people to sign up and join them. Then Nick Walters from the National Hemp Growers Co-op got up and talked about hemp as energy and how through biodigesters, industrial hemp can be a source for natural gas. Really interesting stuff, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that. Then Ken and Morgan gave some closing remarks, and the summit came to an end. Almost. They invited everybody back to the Wake Up for pizza and beer. It was a really fun night. So much camaraderie and getting to know each other, and it just feels like the industry is congealing. And IND Hemp at this point is the leader in the space, and there's a lot to being a leader. It's not just standing up there and telling people what to do. It's leading by example, and that's what IND Hemp is doing right now. And they are so encouraging to other folks who are maybe not quite as far along as they are in their journey to setting up a processor or working with farmers or whatever. And the whole feeling here is that IND Hemp is an open book, and everybody can come and learn. And it's so necessary. So I'm grateful for that. And for me personally, this trip was very, very rewarding. I got to connect with people in the space that I've only really known through Zoom calls and podcast interviews. But here it was really meaningful time, and I am grateful for it. And more importantly, this summit was good for the fiber and grain industry. This industry is so small, but the potential is so big, and everybody here knows that. What they're doing now is smart. Getting everything figured out and ready for when the rest of the world wakes up to industrial hemp. The foundations of an industry with so much potential to improve the health of the planet, the lives of people, the environment, the economy, communities, revitalizing small town America. The foundations of all of that are being built here in Montana. And now it's Thursday. It's production day. I've been writing and editing all day, trying to get this podcast out the door to you. I'm still hoping to do an interview with Ken Elliott tonight, and also hoping to play some music with his wife Julie, who brought a guitar especially for me to play. And tomorrow I head home to Pennsylvania. So I'm Eric Hurlock. I am here reporting to you from Fort Benton, Montana, for IND's Summer Summit. And looking forward to getting home. Next week, I've got an interview with Sander Katz lined up. So I'm going to be talking to him on Tuesday, and next week's show is going to be about fermentation. What does that have to do with hemp? Hopefully something. I have a sneaking suspicion that Mr. Katz knows a thing or two about industrial hemp as well as fermentation. So stay tuned for that. If you want to get in touch with me, you can always email me. Send an email to podcast@lancasterfarming.com. And what else? What else am I missing? I don't know. I appreciate your patience with me in this, sort of thrown together show this week. But I hope you appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And until next time, I'll see you in the newspaper. Well, Ken Elliott, it's the day after the summit. We're sitting here on your daughter's front porch. It's a beautiful summer evening. The Missouri River's flowing by. How are you doing?
Eric, I'm good. How about that summit, huh? How about the people that showed up for that thing? We had, I like to call them the movers and shakers of our industry, and they were. These are people who've put blood, sweat, and tears into this industry, and a lot of personal capital and effort, and we all got together, made some plans, and schemed on what we think we might need to do next year to move the industry forward. And I think we did a lot of good things.
Yeah, a lot of good conversations. You could feel the synergy, What were some of the main topics of conversation the way you saw it or heard it?
Yeah, we talked about a lot of good things. Hemp is food, and we had Chad Rosen with Victory there, and we had we just had a great group working with us on that. Hemp is carbon. We talked about the environmental aspects of it and carbon credits and how that works and how good hemp can be, which I thought was fantastic. We had folks talking about insurance, private insurance opportunities. We talked about where we've come this last year, and did we meet some of the goals and objectives that we set for ourselves last year at this summit? I think we did. I think it was
a good one. Mm-hmm. I'm really thankful to be here. So thank you for your support. IND has been very supportive of us and what we're doing.
Absolutely, you do a great job. Hopefully, you can tell your bosses, whoever they may be, that we sure appreciate letting you come out.
Well, I think you just told them now.
There we go.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again. We'll see you next time, right?
Yeah, wherever next time is. I'm looking forward to catching up with you, brother. And
All right.
You be safe going home. Say hi to Heather and the kids.
All right. Thanks, Ken.
All right. Take care, Eric.
Industrial hemp.
Season 2, Episode 31 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2022 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, which is part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show was written and recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Hurlock, and any music you heard throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow. Special thanks to the folks at the Grand Union Hotel here in Fort Benton, Montana, for letting the Tin Bird Shadow play that piano in the lobby.